Hello, everybody. It's week 2 on the High School Sports Caravan, and we've got a couple big games to preview for you here as we get ready to go on Friday night. I'm Jim Powers. This is John Edwards. And, John, we're going to kick off things over at Vianney as they unveil their new football field. Some great stadium upgrades, but they're playing a very talented number 2 team in Class 5, Jackson, as they come up from the Cape Girardeau area.
Jackson and Vianney played each other twice last season. Jackson picked up the victory in the playoffs 14-0. Expect another good game. Jackson with a huge win last Friday night down in their home field, and Vianney picked up a win as well on the road. So expect a really good game. 2 high-powered offenses, both put up over 40 points last weekend. But I think Vianney's going to have their hands full with this Jackson team.
Jackson does a lot of great things, but I think the thing with Vianney is they're buying in the second-year head coach Paul Day's philosophy, and you're seeing a lot of great changes down at the home of the Golden Griffins.
No Markel Smith this year, and that's a big, big difference for Vianney this year. So things need to be a little bit more equally distributed as in years past, where you don't have that dynamic guy or maybe that one guy that you know that you can hand the ball off 25, 30 times a game.
The one great thing, too, with Vianney and 2 kids I know you guys are going to talk a lot about tomorrow night, Kyle Markaway at the tight end position and Jordan Hardwick, who is one of the gentlemen that's filling in those big shoes for Markel Smith. Those 2 young men, D1 recruits, moving on to further their education, best friends on the field, best friends off the field.
Hardwick last weekend, 2 touchdowns for Vianney. So you're talking about guys now that have to step up and fill in those leadership roles for Vianney, and they have that now. Playing behind a guy like Markel Smith last year, knowing what they're expected to do this year, now they have to step up.
And Jackson, a familiar name at the controls down there, their head coach Brett Eckley, the high-powered offense that he started in Montgomery County many years ago, took it to Union, and now bringing it to Jackson. And you're exactly right. They love to just spread it out and get the good old West Coast offense rolling.
Ben Maudie last week had a monster game. He had 4 touchdowns, 5 receptions, over 100 yards, and that was a guy they really weren't expecting anything to happen last week. Their quarterback he had 5 combined touchdowns last week. So you're looking at a team that not only can pass the ball, but they get a lot of running offense from their quarterback as well.
That's game number 1. Now we'll have game number 2 on the St. Mary's Sports Network. St. Mary's, their home opener against Priory. The Dragons get a big victory, a touchdown with less than 3 minutes to go last week to beat a very good Gateway team.
I don't think St. Mary's really expected that game out of Gateway STEM, but they hung around, and eventually St. Mary's was able to run them, kind of run them down into the ground a little bit. But you're looking at 2 teams, Jim, that they're kind of still on the upswing of the PHL conference. St. Mary's, you're looking at them. They've been to the playoffs before. They have a lot of experience with that team. And expect a good game out of Priory this weekend. They lost to Soldan last week, 24-21.
Yeah, Priory has a very talented quarterback. And talking to Coach Steve Atinas yesterday, a lot of people looking at him to possibly start to get some looks maybe in that FCS, frame. But you look at St. Mary's, they ran the triple option, but then they scored the winning touchdown on a pass to a freshman. So kind of got Gateway on their heels a little bit and did some mixing up in the fourth quarter to get the victory.
When 90% of your offense is running their triple offense, and you throw that occasional pass, and if you pound the ball, and if you're able to make that one play, and if it's, if you're running the ball 9 times and you make that one pass, you have to make that one pass work, and it worked for them.
Last week we saw some very big upsets. I think there's one team that's looking to bounce back. Webster Groves plays Hazelwood East. We'll talk about that real quick. You saw the Statesman last week. This has got to be a bounce-back game for Cliff Ice and the Statesman.
Has to be a bounce-back game for them this week. Really can't afford to take another loss, especially early on this season. Rob Thompson did not have a good game for them last week. Despite the stats, Michael Young and I were commenting during the game that Rob Thompson just didn't look like he was really getting into his passes, really throwing the ball with just his arm and his upper body, and a lot of his balls sailed away. Cameron Cameron Hilton had an average game, but on the other side of things, John Thomas had a really good game for them at the wide receiver position. So I think, Rob Thompson does find another offensive weapon for him in the back, in the wide receiver position.
So bounce back game for Webster Groves. They start football over on the Illinois side. Couple big matchups, and especially one O'Fallon taking on Cahokia, which will be an absolute fun game to watch.
You're looking at two teams that have a lot of history between them, and you don't know what to expect. It's expect the unexpected over there.
Absolutely. And the Rams game of the week, the last one we'll talk about here on this side, they win the fan vote. Alton Marquette taking on a very, very talented Civic Memorial team. A rivalry renewed this year.
A rivalry renewed, and it's another one of those games where we talk about history. It's been a while since they played, but you like to see the fans get out there and vote for a game that maybe you don't really expect. Right. So it's nice to see the fans vote for that game back.
And then finally, two games out in the western part of the state that I know everybody in the St. Louis area is going to be watching. A game that I'm keeping my eye on especially, we all know my history with the great folks down at Webb City. Webb City, number 1 in Class 4, traveling up to play number 4, Rockhurst, up at Rockhurst. What a great early season matchup.
Well, you know what you're getting from Webb City, but you really didn't expect the performance that you got from Rockhurst last bridge. They really took it to Rockhurst. They really took it to Rockbridge last week, and you know what? It's one of those things. Webb City, they're a team that's just going to wear you out. They have that depth, and you know that's a team that they start playing the Webb City offense in junior high, and that's what they get. So when you come in as a freshman or a sophomore, you're really ready to play.
Absolutely. So that game will be right here on Misha.TV, as well as our two games here in St. Louis with the High School Sports Caravan. But then the battle of the number ones. Fort Osage, number 1 and 5. Blue Springs, number 1 and 6. You don't see these types of matchups in week 2 during the regular season.
We have a ton of matchups in week 2 that you're looking at teams that could potentially be at the Dome in November, and you can expect Blue Springs or Fort Osage to be there too.
Yeah, a lot of people talking in Class 6. Blue Springs is the cream of the crop in Class 6, and in Class 5, with Webster losing, a lot of people are saying Fort Osage may be the team to beat. And you saw Webster last week. I saw some of the video on Webster. I've also seen some of the video on Fort Osage. Like I said, I don't think you count Webster out. I think last week was an anomaly. It was a bump in the road. I think they're going to be just fine moving on.
Webster Groves last week, Jim, in that first quarter played Francis Howell to a 0-0 tie. They actually outgained Francis Howell in that first quarter. The second quarter, that's when the errors started happening. Rob Thompson with 3 interceptions and 3 pick sixes, and from a 0-0 game to it was a blowout at the half, 32-0.
Outstanding, John. Have fun on the call tomorrow night over at Vianney with a big Class 5 matchup.
Looking forward to it.
John Edwards and Michael Young will have the call tomorrow evening over at Vianney as they unveil some of their great stadium improvements. Bob Ryan and Joe Parisi will have the call from St. Mary's as Priory comes up to the land of the Dragons in South City to take on St. Mary's. Also, make sure you tune in to the Fox 2 Prep Zone at 10:20 on Friday nights. You'll be able to catch me, Charlie Marlowe, Earl Austin Jr., and Zach Crote as we break down all the great games. And then immediately following, come back to the High School Sports Caravan website. We'll have all our thoughts about week number 2 of the high school season. For John Edwards, for our video coordinator, Joe Cochran, I'm Jim Powers. Have a great week. Make sure you check us out, www.highschoolsportscaravan.com.